Fountain Street Church, happy Sunday. There are as yet in human civilization 3 remaining vocations of rhetoric, a field which used to be very valuable and lucrative, but has gone the way of the dinosaur. No, you can still practice rhetoric and get paid for it. You can be a preacher, you can be a trial lawyer, or you can be a stand-up comedian. Many preachers start out in one of the first 2. I am going to begin with a joke. It's not something I normally do, but this is a very ancient joke, so you've got to take it seriously. This joke is from the Islamic tradition. It's probably from around the year 1200. I'm going to bring it by way of the great contemporary Sufi theologian Nasrallah Shah, translated from the Persian. Once upon a time, Mullah Nasreddin lost his most precious ring. His wife returned home to find him scouring the courtyard, searching for this ring. She began to help him search for it, looking beneath the fruit trees and in the flower beds. And eventually she grew weary of searching and asked him, "Mullah, do you remember where you were when you lost it?" And he said, "Yes, I was in the bedroom." Furious, she asked him, "Then why are we looking for it in the courtyard?" To which he replied, "Obviously because the light is better out here." This joke, almost 1,000 years old, has been told hundreds of different ways. In French, it is a clown looking for his matchbox, and in Germany, it's a man who's lost his pocketbook, and in America, it's usually a drunk looking for a quarter under a streetlight. This has given rise to something that is called, in the realm of logic, the streetlight fallacy, the drunkard's search. It's a type of observational bias that occurs when people only look for something where it's easiest to look. Because it's almost always easier to look for the things that we're missing when it's most convenient and where it's most convenient. It's easier to search where the light is already shining. It's a bit harder to make the light we need and then search where that light shines. The light may shine on some things that we would rather leave in the dark. When we increase the radius of our circle of light, it threatens our certainty. So today in America, among many of our friends and neighbors, for some of us even in our own families, they're not only searching for their treasure beneath whatever light they can find, they're also actively trying to reduce the boundaries of that circle of light to find the truth. And here at Fountain Street Church, you are all about growing your circle of light. When we were having conversations about what the theme for this year might be, this business of the beloved community, it was suggested maybe searching for the beloved community or even maybe discovering our beloved community. But ultimately, the general consensus came back around to the idea of building a beloved community or growing a beloved community, because I like growing, I like working in the dirt, but it informs our process. Fountain Street has always been more concerned with process over product. Don Hoekstra said that. It forces us to wrestle with the question, what is the foundation of the thing? What are we building here? Is it justice? Is justice the foundation out of which everything grows? Is compassion the dirt out of which we're going to grow something? Or do we maybe have it backward? The first reading that Jill shared is taken from the Humanist Manifesto. It explains that it is diversity itself which is, quote, the soil from which justice and compassion grow, end quote. So diversity is the soil, and compassion and justice are the crops that grow out of it. So the little circle of light can be grown if we embrace diversity as strength, and if we commit to mastering the art and discipline of practicing love as a verb instead of a noun. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. So the second text that Alice just so wonderfully shared, those words of Kurt Vonnegut Jr., the future of our species depends on how we behave toward one another and how well we can work together. Vonnegut says, join whatever community you can find that still knows how to be kind. Look for the people who remember how to take care of children, how to take care of old people, how to take care of the sick, because the world has never been saved by experts or by theories. It's saved a little bit at a time. Ordinary people choosing to be decent, choosing to look after one another, choosing to make little circles of light in the darkness. Kurt Vonnegut was the honorary president of the American Humanist Association from 1992 until his death in 2007. And he was named Humanist of the Year in 1992 as well. And he was one of the good ones. I think I read most of his books before I graduated high school. A United States Army veteran, World War II, captured by the Germans during the Battle of the Bulge. He returned after that war to the States, and he set himself to the task of describing the impossible contradictions of this country. I think he would have loved this beautiful work of art here, this recreation of the flag of the United States, which is here on the pulpit today. The art of democracy is the theme for Art Prize at Fountain Street. And this week is this image of the flag created by Diane Carroll Burdick, a member of this church. It's beautiful, and it's tense, and it's a little uncomfortable. They said, we're going to put a flag on the pulpit at Fountain Street. I said, oh, God. It's an American flag made up of thousands of images of immigrants. I love it because I can't stop thinking about it. And that's why I love it. I love this. I love this place so much because I enjoy having to think about things. I have a kind of natural suspicion of certainty. Maybe I do. I have to think about it. How many of us have been having this tense conversation about the American flag? Yeah. Somebody that I love complains that they don't see more American flags at the protests. They shouldn't let the fascists own the flag. The president's trying to make it illegal to burn the blessed thing. The military veteran was recently arrested for burning a flag. I think they're trying to shrink the circle of light. And they want to reduce the circle of who that flag is intended to represent. And so Diane's artwork helps me. When I see an American flag, a sticker on the bumper of a car, it feels like a political statement. I don't like that. I don't like it. And so when I look at this work of art, I start very close to it, and I bring my eyes toward it until I can see the individual faces of the families of immigrants. And then I slowly back up, and it blurs a little bit, and eventually I can see the flag that I remember from Boy Scouts, from my dad's military uniforms, the flag that I carried as a boy in the Memorial Day parade. The flag of a nation of immigrants. Because if I don't get myself inside that circle of light, I'll lose my vision of a nation that's still worth fighting for. In my myopic rage, I will become an untethered, anti-capitalist, anti-fascist, someone who can only fight without ever once being able to articulate who or what it is I'm fighting for. Now, the United States of America is many things. It is an empire like Rome. It is a useful tool of global capital. It is a military welfare state. And to many millions of its own citizens, it is still a fraudulent promise. In the words of Dr. King, for millions of people, America wrote a bad check, a check that has come back marked insufficient funds. And the United States is also a nation that is filled with a radically diverse population of people who speak 100 different languages, who celebrate 100 different cultures, a nation of people with 1,000 different names for God and no gods at all. So if I can't see in my circle of light a country that I can love, then I'm left to scrounge around in the dirt beneath a street lamp, losing a fight against growing darkness. The United States is still the most diverse nation in the history of the world, and we can still create a larger circle of light. So I'm going to speak very briefly about our loved ones who are seeking to shrink that circle of light. I have decided to have some uncertainty in my life. But I know that all people don't wrestle with this. I know they don't. They're certain that they're certain. They know that they love America. They won't shut up about it. For God's sake, they put a bumper sticker of a flag on their car. With loud voices that prattle on about how much they love America. And they got no idea what it is that they actually love. People today very loudly proclaim that they love America and they love freedom. And then they're the very first to loudly demand that some American comedian be taken off the air. Or that someone bend the knee to their little god or swear allegiance to their little president. They don't know what freedom means. They just like the way that they feel when they take it away from others. But it's not freedom that they're in love with, it's certainty. And they love that feeling, the feeling of certainty. But if you ask them, you just ask a few questions, you can get in a lot of trouble. They love America. They say, yes, you better believe I love America. How dare you suggest otherwise? So you love California? That's not America. California? No, hell no, I don't love California. What are you, crazy? Okay, so you love most of America. What about Americans that vote for Democrats? You love those ones? Huh? No, deport them. You love Americans that are immigrants? What about Americans that are born from immigrants? Nope. Transgender Americans? You love them? How about atheist Americans? And so as far as I can tell, most of them have got a definition of an American that they can love down to a list of just a handful of people. I know Canadians who love more Americans than these people. And so they don't love these United States. They love their feelings about the United States. And it's all those Americans that they hate. Certain that they're going to find their lost keys in a tiny circle of light. And this is what the Frankfurt School called the death drive. It's the circle of insiders growing smaller and smaller and smaller. It is the fruit of bigotry. The great sociologist, the German sociologist Erich Fromm, wrote about this death drive. Erich Fromm's work is very important and it's worth reading today. He was born in 1900 into a middle-class Orthodox Jewish family in Frankfurt, Germany. He narrowly escaped the rise of Nazism so he could spend his life thinking about this problem. Fascinating man. He began his life as an ardent Zionist, and then he reasoned that this was incompatible with humanism. And he rejected Zionism. He was often described by people as an atheist, but he described himself as a non-theistic mystic. I kind of like that. And yes, he spoke here from the pulpit of Fountain Street Church. He wanted us to understand why people embrace fascism. Why? He rejected simple explanations that describe fascism as an exclusively political problem or an exclusively economic problem. And he rejected purely psychological theories, ideas that Hitler was an insane person or that his followers were equally insane. He understood that fascism was both a psychological and a socioeconomic problem. He believed there were these competing drives within the human spirit. There was a love of life and a love of death. And when we become anxious, when we're immiserated by the powers and principalities of the world, when modern humans are alienated by the freedom that comes with democracy, with the freedom of being liberated, they can regress into a pattern of behavior that seeks certainty. They will seek out any authority that they can submit to in order to get rid of this miserable feeling of anxiety and uncertainty that comes with freedom. He believed that Western liberalism and capitalism fosters, quote, the development of a personality which feels powerless and alone and anxious and insecure, and so which would then gladly surrender its freedom to a strong man leader. Reverend Duncan Littlefair, who was a minister of this church, read Fromm's work, and he wrote about this in 1975 in his second book, ominously titled, Sin Comes of Age. So this was Dr. Littlefair's take on this, what he called the new 7 deadly sins, which he believed were ignorance, arrogance, greed, violence, dishonesty, indifference, and idolatry. Idolatry. Oh, it makes my little West Michigan heart kind of, that's why. Okay, calm down. The book's got a yin-yang on the cover. It's not going to be like that. But in that chapter on idolatry, he writes about Fromm's work, and he writes about extremism and bigotry masquerading as love of freedom. I will read from the book. What causes extremism, fanaticism, and these other expressions of idolatry? One cause is fear. Fear of the loss of a favorite idea, fear of a favorite loss of a belief, a way, a type of security, a position, or some other cherished thing. And anxiety. The extremist has a great fear, but he's not sure exactly what he's afraid of. His fear is diffuse, vague, and non-specifiable. Senator Joseph McCarthy in the 1950s was a classic example. The inability to stand the tension of differences is characteristic of extremists. As long as things are not firm, solid, and right, he or she feels a desperate need to end the uncertainty. Paul Tillich observed that, quote, the fanatic is one who, in the effort to resolve his doubts, has had to destroy his freedom. So the fanatic is forever attacking, forever screaming in self-assertion while trying desperately to prevent himself from committing suicide. I can't just read from Duncan's book and call it a sermon. You can understand the fanatic, the desperate Americans who march like sheep into arenas, who are then fleeced and rooked into buying flags and hats, merchandise. Never before has an American president made so much money selling merchandise. The public servant has got to service the public. What is becoming of this country but a desire to flee from the anxiety of freedom into the vice-like grip of certainty? And so to respond, then we have to ask what will become of us. And here, institutionally, all of you, the Fountain Street Church. What is happening as the church shakes the frost off its bones? We see the building is filling with people. There's all these new faces. Every single day, it's like the circle of light is growing. It's growing. And it's becoming more diverse. And that's good soil out of which justice and compassion can grow. Erich Fromm and Duncan Littlefair and Kurt Vonnegut Jr. and thousands of others have patiently and carefully explained the antidote to the dying of the light. It's not easy, It's not about being an expert or having the right theory. It's not a political solution, and it takes constant work in the face of failures and setbacks. But it's blessedly simple. We just have to practice love. We have to practice loving people in a way that is costly. In the exact same way that someone might have to get up an hour early in the morning to get to the gym before they can go to work. In the same way that someone might have to choose to put down their cell phone in order to have a conversation with the person across the table. In the same way that we have to make the conscious decision to leave the house and go to that lecture, that concert, that program. In the same way that we've got to decide to set aside time to talk to our therapist or our doctor. In the same way that it takes time and discipline to learn how to paint a beautiful watercolor or play a musical instrument. Loving, truly loving, will force us to make a disciplined effort. And it requires that we love ourselves. First, the person looking back at us in the mirror, it's hard. It is far harder than authoritarianism. It is far harder than swearing oaths and allegiances or testing people's purity. But it's the disciplined practice of love as a verb, and that is how we expand the circle of light inch by inch. And you don't have to start by loving the authoritarians, for God's sake. You can leave that to the experts. You don't even have to start with your next door neighbor. But I argue that for the benefit of your sanity, it's a good idea. But even if all you can do is begin today by making a disciplined effort to learn to love yourself, even if that's the first step at mastering this, you're going to be like a painter who works on a self-portrait until they're ready to apply that skill and paint another person's likeness. Love is the light that shines to light the places where our treasure is going to be found. As King says, hate cannot drive out darkness. Only love. Only love. So little circles of light. Love intentionally. And love here, from this church, from this very place, where from within here to out there, we can focus on loving the hell out of this neighborhood, or this city, or West Michigan. From the basement classrooms to the tip of the bell tower, which will ring again soon. When soon? When the bells will ring, I've been told you can hear them from across the city. They'll ring out and they'll gather the light. And every Sunday, I promise, with discipline and effort and practice, that circle of light will continue to grow. It'll grow. Yeah, you've done it before. I've read about it in a book. You've done it before, and you will do it again. Amen.